Hey, what's up, guys? How you doing? How's everybody out there in the new year? It is halfway through January already, and so to all of you, Happy New Year, Happy New Year. Um, it's cold. You've never seen me in a sweatshirt and a beanie before, but it's cold. I'd rather be here. Trust me on that. I would rather be here. I'd rather be living there, actually. Um, so I just want to talk real quick about, well, so to be fair, let me talk about what this video is about. I'm doing a critique of this other tile guy. About a month ago or so, 6 weeks ago, I started this series. I think there were 3 or 4 videos of this guy who I think modern builds is, I don't know what his name is, but anyway, modern builds. He has nearly 2 million subscribers, and he did a lot of things, many things that I can't even think about now, wrong with his tile job. And YouTube is just a funny space where down there at the bottom it'll say, "Hey, you might want to watch this video," and that's how I stumbled on his video. So I made a series of 4 videos, I think, critiquing his method because he made mistakes, and then a week later, 2 weeks later, he would correct the mistakes. So with all his followers that he has, 100, well, 1,900,000 subscribers, I'm just like, wow, almost 2 million subscribers, and this guy is just hacking up this job, and then making the mistakes and not correcting himself for weeks later, so that some of his people would go out and go do what he did and never go back to his videos to see where they messed up. I just thought it was messed up. That was my take. So now I'm back to do another critique video, and critique videos arguably are a thing on YouTube. I've seen plumbers critique homeowners, plumbing stuff that they do. I've seen fence guys on YouTube, pretty predominant fence guys, talk about, oh, this fence isn't built well and blah, blah, blah. They're doing critique videos. And somebody in the comment section, a couple of people actually said, hey, I like your critique videos. You should do more of them. And it's not my lane to do critique videos all the time. But YouTube recommended me this video, and I went and watched it. And this guy is a bit clueless also, just like modern builds. There are some things in the video that he does that arguably are very subjective, and you could do it this way or this way or this way, and I disagree with his method, and I will chime in and talk about when I disagree with his method. But a couple of things I want to talk about before I get to that. One, the fires in California. As many of you know, some of you don't know, I'm a native California. I've been in Georgia now half my life, but I was raised and, brought up in Southern California. So all the San Fernando Valley, Van Nuys, all that area is my stomping ground. At one point, I dated a woman whose father lived in Pacific Palisades, and he was high end, high end. He was a vice president of NFL properties. So all the merchandise and all that stuff. Anyway, he worked in Century City and he owned a house in Pacific Palisades. So I have a familiarity with that area. It's just kind of northwest of Beverly Hills. And so I feel bad about what's going on there. I really do. And for all the people that are reaching out to help them, I appreciate it. I appreciate it because even though, yeah, it's a ritzy area, there's a lot of areas right now that are being touched by those fires, plural, that aren't well to do. And insurance is hard to get, just like in Florida now. It's hard to get in California, even to cover those things. So there's that. Other thing I want to, a quick side note before I get started on this video. I have a series of videos that's currently on my channel on how to convert a tub to a shower. And I think there's either 4 or 5 of them that are current. No, there's 3 of them that are on my channel right now from the very beginning of taking this tub out and blah, blah, blah. So the last video that I did was actually taking the tub out, and that's on my channel too. You can go watch that. It's a fiberglass tub that I just cut up in a bunch of pieces and all that stuff. And I started to get into the plumbing, which means plumbing proper, which means the drain and taking care of the shower valve and putting a new one in, all that stuff. Something happened to my SD card or my camera, I don't know which. Somehow or another, I lost a bunch of footage. So I have, out of a 30-minute video that I had set to come up this Friday, a 30-minute video, there's about 7 minutes. And I feel stupid about putting a 7-minute video up because there's so much information that goes beyond that 7 minutes that I lost. So I'm going to ask you, if you're watching this, to go ahead and put it in the comment section. I'm probably going to drop this either today or tomorrow, so I have enough time on Friday to decide whether or not I'm going to post that 7-minute video, because I don't have the rest of it. So just put in the comment section if you want me to post that video on Friday or not, because there's not a whole lot there. Anyway, getting on to the video at hand. I'm gonna, again, preface this video by saying that some of it is subjective and some of it is just out and out wrong. The information that he's given out, um, and to be fair, this video that he posted, I think, is 9 or 10 months old. It's maybe a year. Anyway, it has 1.1 million views. And for that same reason, I talked about modern builds having his following base on YouTube at almost 2 million people. When I saw this video, I'm like, no, 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 and no. And how many views of 1.1 million? Oh my God. So I just felt like I needed to come back and critique this guy too. So here we go. I'm gonna jump up here and let him start talking, and I'm gonna interrupt in the interim and talk about what my thoughts are.
Have you ever wondered if you could lay tile? Well, I'm here to tell you, you can. In today's video, we're going to cover 6 basic steps for laying perfect large format tile on your first try. Let me show you how. Step 1. Figure out your tile layout. Start by snapping chalk lines between the center points of opposing walls, which will intersect at the center of the room. Make sure they are perfectly square and adjust them if necessary. Next, add grid lines in 2-foot sections in the direction where you want to start the tile. These lines help to make sure that the tile is laid straight, creating an easy grid pattern to follow. Next, lay out.
Okay, I disagree with that first part. When he talked about snapping a line in the middle, we don't have, typically here in Metro Atlanta anyway, we don't have square rooms to work with. For whatever reason, the guys that started building these houses started making these bathrooms and stuff like that, all these weird directions and all that stuff. So we don't really have a square to start in. And I would never, ever, ever start in the middle of the floor anyway. If you see that one chalk line that he snapped, in the center of the floor, he's got his tile laid halfway on that, and I would never start from the very center of the floor. I just wouldn't. To the left of where that guy's sitting is a doorway, and there's another one to the right of where that guy is standing, and there's 2 doorways, and I think that where he's standing at is a back door. That other door on the left where the guy's sitting, that's where I want my tile, full tile. So if it's a 24-inch opening, 36, it doesn't matter. Full tile is going to go in there and beyond the threshold because it has to go up to the door jamb. So there's going to be about 2 inches of a tile cut off, maybe an inch or so to the left and right of on that wall, but it's going to be full tile right when you walk in. That's what I want to see. And any sliver cuts or any tile that's cut or whatever is going to end up in the back, where there's going to be a cabinetry, there's going to be, shoe molding and trim and all this other stuff going on. So you're never going to see that cut. It's not going to be relevant. But when you walk into the room, you want to see a full tile. That's my take on that. Now, subjectively, could you do it this way? Yes, I just disagree with it.
A row of loose tiles in both directions. Use the tile spacers to leave space for uniform joints.
And yes, that is a good idea. He is dry fitting all that tile. He's dry fitting, putting the leveling clips in and all that stuff to make sure that the layout that he has is going to work. Yes, dry fit, dry fit, dry fit, especially on a shower floor. And I will add to that, do all your cuts. So not only dry fit, but do all your preliminary cuts that you have to do around door jambs and all this other stuff prior to setting the tile. That's a better way to make sure that you don't have any screw ups.
This will give you an idea of how the tile will end up at each end of the room. Having this information before you start laying the tile gives you an opportunity to shift the design left or right, up or down to make sure you don't end up with odd looking slivers of tile at the most visible ends. After mocking up several layouts and considering the length of our 24-inch tile, we settled on a 1/3 offset, which means the first row will start with 8-inch tile length, the second row will be 16 inches long, and finally the third row will start with a full 24-inch tile.
Okay, you see where he's done there and the way he explained it? That's called stair step. And that's a 1/3 offset. And the reason he's doing that is because almost everybody out there, especially tile manufacturers, on the box will say, literally, do this at 1/3. And when you do it at 1/3, like he's talking about 8-inch, 16-inch, and a full tile, you replicate that pattern over and over again. Most of my customers don't like that on a floor, and probably doesn't matter a whole lot. I personally don't like it. I'd rather see it in half. But the reason that the manufacturers say that is because everybody knows that tiles have a slight bow in them. But we're using leveling clips now, so we could do it in half all day long without any interruption, without any screw up or whatever. That he's doing it at thirds is only because that's a standard mantra out there. Make sure you do it at thirds with a large format tile. Yeah, no. Now, again, that's a subjective thing. He's basically saying this is what you should do, and I'm saying no, that's one way to do it, but you can do it at half, which most of my customers want.
In our case, we're working with gypcrete subfloors.
Okay, gypcrete. It has gypsum and it has um, cement. So it's cement gypsum mix, and it's white. And back in the day, back in the 90s, when I worked in an apartment complex, second, third, fourth floors, fifth floor, sixth floors, whatever, would have this up underneath the carpet. And when you walk down the hallway, you would hear the grinding of two pieces of this gypcrete that would break. And you're hearing that grinding happen. And when we would go to punch out the apartment and pull the carpet up, we would see what that grinding was. It was thick. It was like 2 inches, 3 inches of this gypcrete that they put down on the wood subfloor, second, third, fourth floor, whatever. And it was just very annoying to listen to, but also to remediate, to fix, and all that stuff. It doesn't have enough. There's not enough adhesion. There's not enough adhesion. It's not a really tough material. It will be for a year or two or 5 years or 7 years or 8 or maybe 10 years. I don't know. I don't know the time stipulation on that, but I do know that it cracks because as the movement of your subfloor moves, right, especially where the crease is at, that's where the weak spot is. And it's not like Durarock or Hardyback or something like that because it's poured in there. And so what he's saying is, and I'm going to back up a little bit if I can. What he's saying is that when he was taking up all this tile, that he was cracking some of this gypcrete, which is true because it does crack relatively easy. So the remediation for this is take out all of that floor down to the subfloor and start from scratch. And he's not going to do that. Watch what he does.
Because it's very brittle, it sustained some damage during an old tile removal. So to prep our surface, we started by painting on a waterproofing membrane.
I don't know why he put waterproofing on the gypcrete. I really don't. That looks like Ardex. So arguably, all of the liquid topical membranes, RedGuard, Ardex, 8+9, blah, 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 Aqua Defense and all that stuff, has properties that it's a crack preventer. Yeah. And so I don't know why he put the waterproofer there. He's claiming so that when he puts down, I don't want to spoil alert, he's going to try and float a floor and it's not going to go so well. But he's going to float over this. So he's claiming the reason he put that waterproofer down is to mitigate any water getting into the what did I call it? Gypcrete below it. That he wanted to mitigate water getting into that when he tries to float this floor on top of the gypcrete, which I disagree. It's a mess. It's a hot mess, as they say in Atlanta. I would never put a waterproofer on top. In fact, the gypcrete has to go. That's what I said before. All of it go away and start with a normal surface.
To prevent the gypcrete from pulling moisture out of the mortar. Next, we installed the metal lathe, attempted to level the floor with mortar.
Okay. Couple things here. First of all, metal lathe that he's using, right? So he's got metal lathe, and there's nowhere in here. Sorry, let me jump over here. There's nowhere that I see where they're stapling down this metal lathe, right? There's no staples, there's no nails, because what are you going to nail it to? What are you going to staple it to? Gypcrete? You can't do that. So that's basically metal lathe on top. It's floating. And then he's putting mortar on top of that and trying to float this floor. And as he already remarks, he didn't do a very good job of it. I don't know why he's trying to float a floor on top of gypcrete. It's just bizarre. And of course, this is an anomaly because I doubt there's very many people out there that had gypcrete as a subfloor. But having said that, it's just wrong in so many ways. And then floating the floor on, no. Take the whole thing out and start over. It doesn't. This makes no sense at all.
Check out the process in the link below. Let's just say it could have gone a lot smoother. Step 3, cutting tile. Carefully measure the tile to be cut and mark it with a pencil or a felt tip pen. In our case, the layout is very simple yet brilliant. because one cut tile will have both an 8-inch piece for row 1 and a 16-inch piece for row 2. This
Right. An 8-inch piece, a 16-inch piece, and then a full piece. So why are you using a table saw? A table saw, I've owned probably 2 or 3 of them over the last 20 plus years, and I use them rarely. A table saw I would use in a kitchen for doing a backsplash. Very, very small mosaic tile I would use a table saw for. Plus, it doesn't make as much of a mess. But you cannot use that on a large format tile, especially a girthy, really solid porcelain tile. That blade, that 4-inch blade on there is not sturdy enough. It bends too much. You're not going to get a straight cut. So I would never, never use that, which is why he put this little block thing. He's got a couple of 2x4s screwed into the thing so that the tile doesn't move and move the blade and then have not a straight line. I don't know why he's using a table saw. He would have been much better off to go rent a normal, stand up 10-inch blade type wet saw, or he could have used a manual cutter, which I think he already talks about a little bit later, but this would be the wrong application for this size tile.
eliminates a lot of the tile waste and halves the number of cuts. We set up a jig on our tile saw for cutting our tile, but for this basic pattern, a tile cutter would work just as well. If you're
Yes,
going to use a tile saw, make sure you select the correct blade for the type of tile you're installing.
right. The correct blade, which would not be a 4-inch, kind of wonky blade, wouldn't do that. And here's another thing. This is just a personal gripe that I have. Don't call thin set mortar. But he continues when he poured the mortar on the floor under the lathe, he called that mortar, which it is. But thin set is not mortar, and he keeps calling thin set mortar. I hate it.
Step 4. Applying mortar. It's very important for the success of
Not
this
mortar. It's thin set. It's thin set, not mortar.
project to research and apply the right mortar for the subfloor you
Thin
have
set.
and the size of the tile being installed. For the size of our 12 by 24 inch tile, we went with the VersaBond LFT grade fortified medium bed mortar. LFT stands for large format tile. Large format tile is any tile that has at least one side longer than 12 inches. Be sure to carefully read and follow all the instructions and precautions on the mortar bag.
Yes, an LFT, what he said was absolutely correct. LF, large format tile. Now, is there chemical makeup with LFT thin set, not mortar, thin set, as opposed to just the regular bag for, $12? Why would you pay $24, $26 for LFT? I don't know. I always use it because it's a backup. Like, I don't know if there's a chemical additive or something that they're doing different with LFT as opposed to just regular thin set, but I always use it anyway. So he is correct on that. And it is thin set, not mortar. Quit calling it mortar.
I would also highly recommend mixing only enough mortar to be used within
Ah,
30 minutes. Any longer
only mix enough mortar thin set to last 30 minutes. No, listen,
than that, and the mortar will start setting up and losing its strength properties.
that is false, false, false. After 30 minutes, it loses its strength properties. Garbage. That is a straight up lie. So 30-minute working time, no, I get 2, 3, sometimes 4 hours of working time out of my thin set. Even if it means mixing it up again, even if it means spritzing just a little tad of water before you mix it up, because it will stiffen up after, an hour or so, but it's still workable and it still is useful after 30 minutes. So what he said is a flat out lie. Now, after 3 hours and beyond, yeah, you're probably done. But as far as like it not working right, it still works right.
Just for reference, in the beginning, we started with about half a Home Depot bucket and worked our way up from there as we got faster. Another important tip is to always use the type of trowel recommended on the mortar bag. Spread a 1/4 inch coat on the surface of the install area using the flat side of the trowel. Next, use the notch side of the trowel to comb the mortar into standing ridges by holding the trowel at a 45-degree angle. Then remove excess mortar, leaving a uniform ridge
That's it.
setting bed. And remember, don't spread mortar on the area
Thin set, not mortar. Don't spread thin set. Sorry, still a pet peeve I have. Okay, so let me say a couple of things about this, right? Let me jump up here. Two things. One, you see where that cut, hold on, let me go back so you can see it better. You see where that, he's going to have a cut. He's going to have about, it looks like maybe this is theoretically 12 inches going that direction. And I think he's going to end up with like maybe a 7-inch cut or something like that. Look at there. So on the left side there, Where the doorway is gonna be, he's got maybe a 7-inch cut. It looks smaller than that, maybe 5-inch cut, and I don't like that because that's where the doorway is. So whether or not he does a full tile all the way across, I don't think he does, but that's why this is I don't like that. When you walk into the room, you don't wanna see a 5-inch cut, you wanna see a full piece. That's what I was getting at before. But the other thing, and more importantly, look how his thin set is spread, like, from back to where the yellow, I guess, what did he say on this hand? Whatever it is, yellow. So that's elongated spread. We don't do elongated spread on elongated tile. And a large format tile is 24 inches down. No, you do it the other way. When you comb your mortar out, your mortar, now I'm getting into him. When you comb your thin set out with that trowel, you want it to be the shorter distance, which is 12 inches. That way, when you compress your tile onto the thin set, it collapses those ridges much easier because it lets the air well, the air escapes either which way, if it's elongated or if it's short wave. But if you have a choice, which you do, why would you spread your thin set elongated rather than the short way? It's just a pet peeve that I have, and I wanted to mention it.
larger than you can set in 15 minutes. If it's your first time, take it one tile at a time till you get comfortable and increase your immediate work area. Step 5, setting tile. Not sure if you noticed, but the variation of shades is an inherent characteristic of ceramic tile. So for a good blend effect, you should always mix the tile from several boxes as you set them.
Yes. In fact, mix those ahead of time. Take all the tile out of the boxes and mix them up. Because the problem with the burn pattern that they have on, especially ceramics and arguably some of the low end porcelain, they replicate the pattern. So out of one box of 8 or 10, you might end up with 2 tile that look exactly the same because they are the same because they burn that pattern on repetitively. And so always mix up all of your tile the best you can and go through each individual one. That's part of that dry fit that we were talking about earlier, so that you can kind of like mix and match.
If your room size allows, try to get all your tiles from the same color lot. This
Yes.
information can be found on the side of.
Yes, very, very important. He's absolutely correct. All of those numbers matter. The lot number matters because the lot number has to do with the coloration. And if you don't, if you grab, I don't know, 20 boxes, right? And you don't look at those numbers and match them up, you're going to end up with one or two boxes possibly that have the wrong lot number. And then you're going to be mad because you have to go back to Home Depot or wherever you get them from, Floor and Decor, and swap them out with the right lot number. So all those numbers definitely matter. Make sure.
the tile box. If you're working with a large room, you can always custom order color lots if you're buying in pallet size quantities at your local big box store. Most of the time, you should begin installing tile in the corner of the room on the last reference line closest to the wall and work your way out from there. Do not ever use the room walls as the.
Do not ever see, I don't like that at all. Again, look down at the bottom where my screen is at, right up here. If I can, right down in the bottom. See, that's where the threshold is at. He's not going to overlap that threshold. He's not going to overlap that threshold with a full tile. So that little 5-6 inch cut that he has is going to be what you see coming into the room first. So when he went, don't ever do that, that's wrong. Do that. Do exactly that. I don't know. It's very subjective, but it just looks stupid.
Guide for laying tile. There's very little chance they are perfectly square. Insert tile spacers at each tile you set. We're using a lash tile leveling system.
Garbage. Let me talk about this too. And I added in, I think he's Australian or British. I just happened to find his video. I came across it and I took out a little section of his video to show you the proper leveling clips for large format tile. These lash, these quip, they were probably, I don't know, $8, $10 a bag or something like that. And you're going to spend a whole lot more for a proper leveling system, a whole lot more. But it's one and done. You're only using them one time. And I guess that's why they can extrude this plastic material and charge you a boatload of money. And these are cheap, which is why a lot of people buy them. But they're not meant for a large format tile. First of all, they're kind of, well, they're cheap. So sometimes a lot of times those clips break prematurely and then you have to add another one and add another one. Plus, the wedges, look how thin those wedges are. In no way, shape, or form would I ever use those on a large format tile. I have used them on smaller tile, where it's not large format, say an 8x8 or 6x6 or something like that. If I need to, I will revert to those. And I do have those around, but I rarely, if ever, use them. So on a large format tile like this, like he's using, don't ever use those. And you'll see the little clip from this British guy in a minute.
This was my first time using it, and as a beginner, I would not lay tile without it.
And then squeeze them together with the application tool.
Proper. Right size clips, right size wedges. Those are exactly what you want on a large format tile. Exactly what you want. You don't want those wonky little things that he has.
So now you've got your first 4 tiles firmly fixed down. You can check that they're square and each corner is running in line. One double check again with the spirit level to see that they're flush and level, and then you're off.
If you need a demo on how the system works, check out the video in the description below. When you're setting tile one at a time, place them straight down on the mortar bed and use a slight twist.
Okay, so again, not to reiterate because I've said it twice already, but the third time, see where that guy's foot is at in the cat at the doorway? The tile's not going up to there. You know, it's going to be, I don't know. We'll see.
In motion to get them into place. Under no circumstances, slide the tiles into place as
Okay, I'm going to back up on that because he said under no circumstances, and I don't like when people say that.
And use a slight twist in motion to get them into place.
Okay, let me back up one more time because I interrupted what he was saying.
And then you're off.
If you need a demo on how the system works, check out the video in the description below. When you're setting tile one at a time, place them straight down on the mortar bed and use a slight twist in motion to get them into place. Under no circumstances, slide the tiles into place as this will collapse the ridges and give you tile an uneven effect.
Wrong. False, 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 false. This isn't even subjective. When he said lay them down in a slight twisting motion rather than lay them and slide them because it will collapse the ridges. No, collapsing the ridges is exactly what we want. We don't want that air. So whether you slide them or straight down or whatever and wiggle them around, you're trying to collapse the ridges. Let me play back what he said before because I think it's important. Words are important.
And use a slight twist in motion to get them into place. Under no circumstances, slide the tiles into place as this will collapse the ridges and give you tile an uneven effect.
Wrong, 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 wrong. Enough said.
We found the following pattern of spacers to work best for keeping all the edges of this large tile level. You also want to fit the perimeter tile last and leave a 1/4 inch gap.
I would never do the perimeter tile last. Never, never, never would I do the perimeter tile. First of all, if you're doing the perimeter tile last, you better be on point with those leveling clips later on because you're not going to do the perimeter tile on day one. You're going to have to wait till all the other field tile dries before you can walk on it to do the perimeter tile. So you better be on point with your clips or some way or form or fashion. I don't know. Enough of that too. That irritates me. Never, never do the perimeter tile last.
Between the tile and the wall. Any rectangular porcelain tile over 12 inches should never be set in a running board pattern.
There we go. Any large format tile larger than 12 inches should not be set in a running bond pattern. In other words, offset by half.
There no more than 1/3 overlap like we're doing. The gap between the tile and the wall. Any rectangular porcelain tile over 12 inches should never be set in a running board pattern.
Wrong, wrong, wrong. We do it all the time. You know, here's the thing. Giving out false information to people with 1.1 million views on his video just sends the wrong message to DIYers and homeowners. You know, I know he means well. Oh, look at that. He's got his thin set spread the 12-inch way and then reverts back to the elongated way again. I don't know. He'll probably correct that later on. But, you know, the misinformation that he's putting out, I just wanted to push back on because he's just given out a lot of false information.
Rather, no more than 1/3 overlap like we're doing. The grout joints should also be widened to 3/16 inch, and you should use large format tile mortar for proper installation. The further along I got in the process, the less nerve-wracking it became. The project was coming along nicely, so I decided to clean up the area and grab a quick lunch. Anytime you're stepping away in the middle of laying tile, remember to clean up the excess mortar around the tiles. And if you
Thin set. Yes, clean up the extra thin set around the tiles and in the cracks and all that stuff. And I think he refers to this later because I believe he said he didn't do it and he had to pay the price the next day. A toothbrush is usually the easiest way to clean out all those lines. And I need to put a toothbrush in my truck because I keep forgetting myself to do that. But yes, it's much easier to clean those lines when the thin set, not the mortar, is wet and not dried up the next day.
you're using a leveling system, set the spacers before you leave. Otherwise, the mortar may harden and you will not
That's
be
it.
able to easily set them later. Here's the most important takeaway as the first timer after completing this project. Always clean your joints as you set each tile. This is very important, so I will say it again. Always clean your joints as you set each tile. If you don't heed my warning, you will spend hours on your hands and knees removing dried up excess mortar from the joints with a little putty knife. The best way to keep the joints clean is to remove excess mortar with a trowel during installation and then use a damp sponge to wipe the top and the exposed sides of the tiles. Obviously, I did not do this for myself, but this is why you watch these videos, to learn from my mistakes.
Yes, but correct your mistakes along the way. Again, let me reiterate this too because I think it needs worth talking about. Modern builds. I talked about how I think on the first video or two I talked about when he's doing the mortar pan wrong, how there's information. YouTube University has been around. I've been around for 14 years. Well, 15 this year. For 15 years, I've been out there putting out information. And there's other people putting out information. For him to say this is why you watch the videos to learn is the same thing Modern Builds talked about, that Michael guy. But you're doing it wrong. Like, do your due diligence, find out all the information, extrapolate all the information you can from YouTube University, put it all together in your brain, and then put out the correct video because you're not. So when you say that, it's disingenuous because a lot of the things you're saying on here are not true. And it annoys me that if you had, 150 views, or even if you had 2,000 views, or even 40,000 views, okay, no bad. But 1.1 million views on this video with all the felonious information just kind of irritates me. Another thing I want to talk about too, and there's a couple other mistakes, and I know I've gone on now for over 30 minutes. Sorry about that. He used the thin set that he's using is gray, and you have a choice between two different colors. You have gray and you have white, period. But he used gray thin set, knowing full well that he's going to do a light grout. And the light grout and the gray thin set will bleed together. And what takes over? The darker color. So the darker color will bleed up from the thin set, from the gray thin set that he used, up to the light color grout. And you will have that mixing going on. You will have areas of your grout line that are a little darker. Overall, you might get lucky and have a light grout going on, but you're going to see at the very end how he has a bleed through on some of these grout lines. So that's wrong too. I don't like that. Again, very, very elementary part of setting tile is a thin set choice, and he used gray, which is a mistake. So I'm just saying. Let me move on.
But I will shamelessly accept smashing the like button as a thank you. Generally, wait time for grouting joints is about 24 hours, but you should refer to the grout packaging for specifications. Carefully read and follow all the instructions and precautions, and only make enough to use in about 30 minutes. Spread grout onto the tile surface at a 45-degree angle, forcing it down into the joints with a rubber grout float. Remove excess grout from the surface immediately with the edge of the float at a 90-degree angle, scraping it diagonally across the tile.
Okay. I think one of the very first jobs that I did, going back again 15 years, 16 years. No, sorry, that's on YouTube. 24, 25 years ago. One of the very first jobs that I ever did was on a balcony in Midtown here in Atlanta. And I set a lot of tile on this balcony. It had an L-shaped balcony. And the mistake that I made is exactly what he's doing here. Now, that job was outside, so my grout, my grout dried a lot quicker than his grout is going to dry. But I made the mistake, the fatal mistake, of grouting from the very beginning to the very end before I ever wiped anything. and that was a mistake, and I paid the price for it. Never do what he's doing here. When you're grouting, don't grout the entirety of your room and then go back to it later. Just don't. Do your cleanup. As far as I can reach, that's how much I grout, and I do my cleanup. Then I move on to the next part. So him doing this entire room, I don't even think is subjective. Just don't do that.
15 to 20 minutes for the grout to slightly set, and then use a damp sponge to clean the grout residue from the surface and to smooth the grout joints. Rinse the sponge frequently and change the water as needed. Keep in mind that the 15 minutes starts when the grout is first laid. So by the time you finish the room, it's possible that you can go back and start leveling the grout.
If you made the mistake of using Mapai or some other type of grout that sets up relatively quickly, 15 minutes is already beyond. It would take him probably, I'm guessing, a good part of an hour to grout this entire floor from the very back to where he's at now. A good part of an hour. By the time you got back up to the front, especially with Mapai grout, you're done. That grout is going to stay on the surface of your tile. You're going to be scrubbed. You're going to trust me when I say don't do what he did. The other thing that he's going to do and he's going to talk about is continue with the haze that builds up, right? He's going to go back, he said 2 or 3 times to get the haze off. Don't do that. The haze will come off later. You could use grout release 5 days later, 10 days later if you wanted to, but the haze that's on there will always be on there. As he's talking about going with another sponge and a clean bucket and all that stuff 2 or 3 times to get off all the haze, he's degrading the adhesion properties of the grout because he keeps on adding more moisture to it where it's not needed.
The grout dries, it will form haze on the tile surface. You may have to make several passes to clean up the haze with a slightly damp sponge and clean water if necessary. And finally, wait 72 hours for heavy use of your tile. Don't apply sealers or polish.
They keep on trying to get the haze off. Just stop already. This grouting part is, again, just like I talked about with the thin set, it's elementary. The grouting part is probably the easiest part of doing tile. And he didn't even clean off the first time well, but then he's going back 2 or 3 more times to get the haze off when it's totally unnecessary.
For the first 3 weeks, and then only according to the manufacturer's recommendations.
All right. You see, and I can't point to it, but you're going to see to my right. Let me see if I can get a different screen up here. No, that won't work. Let me put full screen on there. You see the bleed through? There's about 4 or 5 lines that I can see definitively that have bleed through. Right at the very front of the screen, there's bleed through. And also he dug into the grout too much. It should have been like the sponge should have like slid over the top of all those tile. And you're going to see, I think, the digging into the grout. Let me see, there's at least 3 or 4 areas I can see where the grout got dug into too much, but also the bleed through. There's about 4 lines there that I can see bleed through. Hold on a second. Look at that. Yeah, he dug in, especially that tile in front of the refrigerator, the one next to it, further off to the left. You can see around that tile, he just really dug in too far. And the leveling clips didn't work for him right on that corner, that intersection where the 3 tile come together. The leveling clips that he used didn't work for him there because I can definitely tell there is some lippage. I mean, overall, that's all the video there is. So overall, it's not a bad job. And it's a homeowner, it's a DIYer. I don't know what his lane is on YouTube because I didn't go to any of the other videos that he has. And overall, it's an okay job. It would work for you're doing it yourself, but it wouldn't work for me or most tile guys that I know. It just wouldn't. And my apprehension is that I don't even really care. I don't have no dog in the fight. My apprehension is that in 2 years or 3 years, that floor that I talked about earlier, is going to crack more, and it's going to transfer. It's going to mess up that whole job. I just feel like I could be wrong, but I think I'm right. So anyway, that's my take. I'm not going to go on too much longer. I've already gone on too long already. God, 40 minutes. 40 minutes. Holy crap. So yeah, two things. One, thank you for watching the video. Two, if you want to see my half-assed video of my plumbing work, that's 7 minutes long that I can post up on Friday, let me know in the comment section and I'll post it up. If not, I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to move on next week to the next one. There's 10 videos in that series. So it's going to go all the way through February into, sorry, all the way through January going into mid-February. With the last one, I think being February 28th or something like that. Each video is like 30 minutes long or whatever, but it's a complete how-to on to convert a tub to a shower. So yeah, go on that series if you haven't already gone on. If you want to know on how to, sorry, I don't know where my mouse went. There it is. Now I can move. If you want to see how to convert a tub to a shower, you can go on that series. But yeah, that's all I have to say. That's it. That's all 40 minutes of me talking. So I'm going to end this now and have a wonderful week. See ya. Oh, by the way, one last thing I want to talk about too. I don't do enough live streams. Mad at myself. Last year, I think I probably did half a dozen live streams over the whole year. And I feel bad about that because I feel like I've really slacked. So also let me know if you want to see more live streams because I can start doing that on Sundays again, or if Saturday's a better day. I don't know. We're in football season. Oh, the Super Bowl's coming up. Oh, thank God we don't have to be in football no more. Anyway, later, guys.